Hey Dave, where are you right now? My water just broke. Please come home right away.
Oh, that's impossible. I'm on a trip with Emma right now. I'm not nearby, so call someone else, like your parents.
No way. This was a critical moment, and today was supposed to be the due date. Despite that, why was Dave on a trip with Emma? Feeling frustrated but realizing time was of the essence, I hurriedly called my dad. With the help of my dad and his assistant, Rick, I managed to safely give birth to a baby girl. Still, Dave had planned a trip with Emma on the due date and didn't visit me even once during my hospital stay. Even after knowing our daughter was born, he continued his trip. Does Dave really think Emma is more important than our newborn daughter? I was completely furious and decided to plan some revenge. With the help of my dad, who is the president of a construction company, Dave was in for a surprise when he returned from his trip. I'm Kate Martin, a 37-year-old housewife who got married a year ago. Before my marriage, I worked at my dad's construction company. I stayed single into my mid-30s, dedicated to my work, and planned to take over my dad's company one day. But then a turning point came. It happened when we were contracted to renovate a hospital in the neighboring town. After work, a man suddenly approached me.
Excuse me, are you on your way home? If it's all right, would you like to have dinner together?
The man who spoke to me was a doctor working at that hospital. I had no particular plans, so I didn't find any reason to refuse and decided to go with him. The doctor's name was Dave Martin, 3 years older than me. He had noticed how hardworking I was and found me intriguing. Dave, like me, was dedicated to his work and still single. I hadn't had much luck with men until then, but I started to wonder if he was interested in me. After all, I was at an age where it wouldn't be strange to meet someone nice. However, I had the goal of taking over my dad's company. Since Dave was a doctor, I wondered if our futures were compatible. Curious, I asked about his views on marriage. So Dave, do you want the woman you marry to have a career? Dave smiled and answered,
No, it might sound old fashioned, but since my job requires me to be away from home a lot, I'd like my partner to focus on the household. But don't worry, I'll fully support and take care of you, so you won't have to worry about anything.
Although he clearly expressed his thoughts, it wasn't the answer I was hoping for. Did I phrase my question wrong? It seemed like he thought I wanted to be a housewife. Marrying him might mean our values wouldn't align. Feeling uncertain about our future, I thought about giving up on dating him. We ended that day by exchanging contact information and going home without any conclusions. However, as night fell, I couldn't stop thinking about Dave. I realized I liked him. Unable to suppress my feelings, I received a call from Dave.
Sorry, once I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about you, Kate. Would you consider going out with me?
I was thinking the same thing. I never expected Dave to feel the same way about me. So we started dating. But the issue of whether to take over the company remained. When I consulted my dad, he reassured me.
Don't worry about the company. We have many capable employees who can handle things. Just focus on your happiness and live your life to the fullest.
His words filled my heart. Eventually, Dave proposed and we got married. We started our happy married life, or so I thought. As Dave had mentioned from the beginning, his job kept him away from home more often than I expected. After getting married, I quit my job to become a full-time housewife. Even though I was determined to take care of our home, I started feeling lonely being alone so much. When Dave was home, I couldn't complain about feeling lonely since he came back tired. However, my worries didn't end there. Dave's salary was deposited into our joint account, but on payday, he would withdraw about half of it immediately. When I asked him what he was spending it on, he replied with an annoyed look,
Medical work involves a lot of expenses for conferences and training. Plus, teamwork is crucial, so I can't refuse when my colleagues invite me out. You can't just pocket everything you earn.
While it seemed reasonable, I couldn't really understand since I had never worked in healthcare. Still, I thought managing the rest was my responsibility as his wife. I didn't press further, fearing it would upset him. But was that a mistake? His withdrawals escalated each month. Initially, he left half for household expenses, but it soon dwindled to 1/3, then 1/4. No matter how much I tightened our budget, it wasn't enough. Whenever Dave came home, I asked why he spent so much, but he insisted it was necessary expenses. However, this seemed excessive. I was reaching my breaking point. How can we manage if you cut our living expenses this much, even if it is necessary?
It's not my fault. If you need more money, why don't you get a job yourself?
How could he say that now? I wanted to keep working, but it was Dave who asked me to quit. My stomach churned with anger, and I started feeling nauseous. Reaching my limit, I rushed to the bathroom. I felt a bit better after throwing up, but hearing Dave's voice from behind made my chest tighten again.
Are you faking it to get sympathy? Sorry, but I'm not falling for that.
No, just leave me alone. I said this and went into the guest room, a place I usually don't use. I couldn't stand sleeping in the same room as Dave tonight, so I decided to sleep here. However, even after lying down, the nausea wouldn't go away. It felt like something was stuck in my throat too. I couldn't sleep all night because I was so worried. Maybe it was some kind of internal organ disease. The next morning, still feeling sick, I ignored Dave as he left for work and headed to the hospital. I chose a hospital closer to home, not the one where Dave worked. After explaining my symptoms during the exam, I was oddly referred to the obstetrics and gynecology department. Suspecting it might be the case, I headed to the obstetrics department in the same hospital. After the examination, I was told I was 8 weeks pregnant. The doctor congratulated me, but honestly, I wasn't sure how to feel. Anyway, I needed to tell Dave. Surely, if he knew we were having a baby, he would reconsider his spending. With that in mind, I sent him a message on my phone about the pregnancy. He read it in the early afternoon but didn't reply. Could it be that he wasn't happy about the baby? Feeling anxious, I waited for Dave to come home that night. However, he didn't come back for a long time. He shouldn't have any plans tonight. After 1 a.m., Dave finally came home and, seeing my face, asked something unexpected.
Why are you still up? Anyway, that's not the point. You don't plan on having this baby, do you?
Why would you ask that? Is there a reason I shouldn't? I was stunned by Dave's reaction. If he didn't want kids, why did he even get married? When I asked him why, he began telling an unbelievable story. It turns out that Dave's childhood friend recently got divorced. She had defied her parents to marry, so she couldn't return home and was struggling alone. So Dave said he was helping her as much as he could. I was speechless. Why should you have to help her? Her divorce is her own problem.
It's not that simple. Emma, she always helped me when I was bullied as a kid. Now I want to be there for her.
Was this some kind of repayment for childhood kindness? I could understand his feelings, but shouldn't he prioritize his own child now? Then it hit me. Wait a minute. Are you saying the money you've been withdrawing for necessary expenses was going to Emma?
Not all of it. Sure, I gave her some, but it's not like I'm using it for anything bad.
His excuse made me furious. Even if he had good intentions, it's our household money. He should have discussed it with me first. Maybe it was the pregnancy hormones, but I blurted out something I shouldn't have. If Emma is so important to you, then leave. I'm divorcing you.
Fine by me. I don't need someone who doesn't understand me. I should have married Emma in the first place.
It was the exchange of harsh words. Dave said that and left the house. Last night, I was so angry that I might have gone too far. Besides, it's better for my baby to have their father around. I decided to apologize and called him, but he didn't answer, so I left a message apologizing for my harsh words. Still, he didn't read my message. Should I give up on having the baby? That evening, I visited my dad at the company he runs and told him everything that happened. My dad was furious.
What is Dave thinking? He's married. Even if they are childhood friends, it's outrageous to cut back on living expenses to help her out.
You're right. I should have managed things better. Should I give up on having this baby? As I asked while gently rubbing my belly, my dad shook his head vigorously.
No, that child is a precious life. Kate, don't worry about anything else. Just focus on having a healthy baby. I'll take care of everything else.
My dad's words brought tears to my eyes. All the employees of the company who were around him said they would help. They were originally my coworkers, and we've always shared everything with each other. Encouraged by these strong colleagues, I decided to have this baby. When I returned home, Dave was standing in front of the door. He seemed to be waiting for me, looking a bit uncomfortable. What's wrong, Dave? Weren't you going to leave?
Well, I was planning to leave at first. But you told your dad about what happened yesterday, didn't you? He called me and yelled at me. He said if I didn't come back immediately, I'd have to pay $100,000 for alimony and child support. He was so scary, like a mafia boss. I had no choice but to come back. Using your parents to threaten me is so unfair.
So that's what happened. Anyway, since he came back, I told him about my decision to have the baby and the due date. However, Dave still spent most of his time away from home, and he kept withdrawing money without telling me. You're probably giving it to Emma again. Even when I made snide comments, he just ignored me. Dave only came back because he didn't want to pay the large amount of money. As the due date approached, Dave was still rarely home. I didn't want to trouble my dad by having the baby at his house since he's the only man there, so I decided to wait at home for Dave. But even on the due date, he didn't come back. Being alone at home, I started to get anxious. Then it happened. Suddenly, I felt labor pains. And then a warm sensation. My water broke. I couldn't bear it any longer and tried to call a taxi, but I couldn't find a paper with the taxi company's number. I should have saved it on my phone. Calling an ambulance would disturb the neighbors. I should call Dave immediately. When I called, Dave answered right away. Hey Dave, where are you right now? My water just broke. Please come home right away.
No, that's impossible. I'm on a trip with Emma right now. I'm not nearby, So call someone else, like your parents.
No way. This was a critical moment, and today was supposed to be the due date. Despite that, why was Dave on a trip with Emma? However, there was no time to be angry in such an urgent situation. I hurriedly ended the call and phoned my dad. He said he would come right away. Since he didn't have a driver's license, he came with his assistant, Rick.
Kate, are you okay? We're going to the hospital right now.
He called out to me loudly while running toward me with Rick, his assistant, who was driving. Rick is the company's executive vice president and always supports my dad in emergencies. I put my arms around both my dad and Rick, and they helped me to the back seat of the car. My dad sat next to me and kept encouraging me while rubbing my back until we reached the hospital. Thanks to them, I safely gave birth to a baby girl. I heard it would have been dangerous if we had arrived a bit later. I was filled with gratitude for my dad and Rick. Thanks to them, I was able to safely deliver my precious child. I couldn't help but adore my daughter, who was crying with a bright red face. My dad was overjoyed, raising both hands in celebration of having a grandchild. I asked my dad to bring Rick, who had been waiting outside the delivery room, inside. I wanted to thank the man who had saved my daughter's life as soon as possible. Rick came in, looking a bit embarrassed.
Kate, congratulations on the birth of your baby.
All thanks to you, underboss. Rick laughed and shook his head lightly when I called him by his old title.
No, our company is now a legitimate company, so please don't call me that. Your daughter will be surprised.
For a moment, the atmosphere felt warm, and I smiled. Was it just my imagination? My daughter, who had stopped crying at some point, now seemed to have a slight smile on her face. Seeing my daughter's peaceful expression, I resolved to make her happy no matter what. However, my spirits sank as I stayed in the hospital room. This was because I hadn't been able to contact Dave since then. He knew I was admitted to this hospital, and I had sent him my room number via message. The longer I waited for a response from Dave, the more depressed I became each day. Even after knowing his daughter was born, it seemed Dave continued his trip. Could Emma really be more important to Dave than his newborn daughter? I knew being upset wasn't good for my daughter. Still, I couldn't control my emotions. I kept recalling Dave's last words on the phone. "What do you mean he is on a trip with Emma?" Those words kept running through my mind like a reel of memories. I loved Dave so much that it made my blood boil. Finally, I snapped and decided to get back at him. As I meticulously planned my revenge in my head, a voice startled me from behind.
What's wrong, Kate? You look scary.
Snapping back to reality, I saw it was my dad. "Dad, how long have you been standing there?"
I just came in. I was going to say something, but you looked so angry, staring at the floor. Is it about Dave?
I nodded quietly in response to my dad's question. Was my expression that frightening? I instinctively looked in the mirror and tried to force a smile. Since my dad was here, I decided to ask him for help with something. It was about the revenge plan I had just come up with for Dave. "Dad, I have a favor to ask. I need everyone at the company to help too." As I began explaining the details of my plan, my dad listened intently with his arms crossed, a serious look on his face. When I finished, he tilted his head and said,
Isn't that a bit too much? You haven't even properly talked to him since your baby was born. Well, it's not like we have much work now, so it's fine.
It's okay. Talking to Dave won't change anything. He won't learn his lesson unless we do something drastic. Please, Dad, I need your help. Desperately pleading with my hands clasped, my dad finally agreed to help. I could already picture Dave's surprised face. A week had passed since the birth. Even though I was in my late 30s, my recovery went smoothly, and I was discharged without any issues. After leaving the hospital, I decided to stay at my dad's house with my daughter. While I was in the hospital, everyone in the Blackwood family swiftly carried out the plan I had asked my dad for. On the way back to my dad's house, I made a stop and attached something to the restricted area rope. That something was. When I called the hospital where Dave works, I found out that he had taken a 2-week leave. He had requested time off, citing wife's expected delivery, but he had probably been enjoying a trip with Emma all this time. According to the dates he requested the leave, he should be coming home today. As I had expected, Dave called in the evening. As soon as I answered, he started yelling.
Hey, why is our house an empty lot? What happened to the house and my stuff? And more importantly, where are you right now?
Calm down, I'll explain everything. I couldn't help but chuckle at his frantic tone. The house we lived in was built by my dad's company and was under his name. So I asked him to have it demolished while Dave was away. By the way, I sent Dave's belongings to his parents' house. When I explained the situation to his parents over the phone, they were furious about Dave's behavior. They even offered to come and apologize, but I declined, saying it was a matter between Dave and me until we could have a proper discussion. Hearing all this, Dave seemed flustered over the phone. Realizing he hadn't noticed something yet, I asked him, "Did you see the letter I left on the rope at the empty lot? It was covered in plastic so it wouldn't get wet in the rain." It seemed Dave hadn't noticed, as I could hear him scrambling to find it.
Oh, this?
After hearing the sound of plastic and paper tearing, Dave started yelling again.
Why is there a divorce paper here? And you've already filled out your part. What did I do to deserve this?
Oh, you went on a trip with your childhood friend during such an important time as your wife's delivery. Isn't that a valid reason for divorce?
Cheating? Where's your proof? I just went on a trip with Emma because she wanted to go to trip. I didn't do anything wrong. Don't make baseless accusations without evidence.
Dave denied cheating, but I had solid proof. Right after giving birth, I told my dad about Dave and Emma's trip, and Rick heard it too. When Rick heard the name Emma, he reacted.
Could it be Emma Brown? If so, that's my ex-wife who recently got divorced.
I remembered that Rick had gotten married about a year ago, but I had never seen his wife's face and recently heard that they had divorced. I described Emma's features as I knew them from Dave, and it seemed to match Rick's description. Then Rick said,
If it's the hotel Emma mentioned wanting to go to, I have a good idea where it is. I'll send some of my colleagues to check it out.
Following Rick's instructions, a few young employees from the company went to the hotel where Dave and Emma were staying. They stayed in the room next to them, took photos of Dave and Emma walking together, and even recorded their nighttime activities through the walls. When I told Dave that these would all serve as evidence, he couldn't say anything and hung up the phone. I knew exactly where he would be going next. After a while, Rick and I went to the place where we expected Dave to be. It was the apartment where Rick had lived with Emma before their divorce. Rick had divorced Emma because she was cheating. Rick had told her to leave, but she showed no signs of moving out, so Rick had left instead. When we arrived, sure enough, Dave was there. His car was in the parking lot. Rick immediately headed to Emma's room, and I followed. When I rang the doorbell, it was Emma who answered. She looked surprised to see Rick.
Rick, what are you doing here? And isn't that Dave's wife? Why are you together?
Emma, it seems you didn't even know where your husband worked while you were married to me. This lady is the daughter of our company's president.
Emma's eyes widened even more in shock.
No, that can't be. Dave's wife is connected to Rick's company?
For the year Emma had been married to Rick, she had shown no interest in his work, neglected their home, and spent her time with other men. So, it wasn't surprising she didn't know that Rick worked at my family's company, where Dave is my husband. But now wasn't the time to discuss this, so I turned my attention to the back of the house, where Dave was likely to be. Dave, make sure to fill out that divorce paper properly and submit it. If you find it troublesome, just sign it and I'll handle the submission for you. Hearing my voice, Dave appeared from the back holding the divorce paper in his hand.
This one?
Yes, that's it. Just as I was eager to finalize the divorce, Rick interrupted.
Wait a minute. Your husband cheated with Emma. We have proof, so he needs to sign a pledge to pay the alimony before we submit the divorce papers.
Geez, alimony. Well, with my income, it's not that big of a deal.
Dave said with a nonchalant expression. But Rick gave Dave a sinister smile, as if to say, "Do you really think it'll be that easy?" It seemed he had something in mind. Rick then turned to Emma.
And Emma, you haven't paid the alimony for your affair yet. I even gave you the apartment. What's your excuse? I have had enough. Pay up the alimony now, every last cent.
Rick's intimidating tone left Emma flustered. Seeing this, Dave tried to defend Emma.
This is like a mafia move. Kate's father was the same way. This is outright intimidation. What kind of people work at this company? Everyone's scary.
Mafia? Up until recently, everyone here used to call me underboss.
Dave's face went even paler. He looked at me nervously and said,
So, does that mean your family, the Blackwood family, is?
"Yes, exactly what you're thinking. But now we're a legitimate business. My dad is well respected in the community for his honest work, which is why even your parents trusted him and didn't object to our marriage." Emma also didn't seem to know as she turned pale. She looked like she was thinking she had to pay the alimony quickly or face unknown consequences.
Hey, Rick, I'll work and pay you back little by little. Can you wait until then?
I'm fine with that, but Emma, it's not just about paying me. You had an affair with her husband, so you need to pay Kate alimony too.
Rick's intimidating voice made Emma look scared as she answered quietly.
Yes.
Good. That settles it. People who do bad things need to make things right.
That's right. And Dave, you will also sign a pledge stating that after the divorce, you will not have any contact with our daughter. Normally, Dave would have argued back, but now he just nodded meekly like Emma had earlier.
Yes.
Rick and I weren't threatening them by using our positions. It's just that our principle of making sure things are done properly hadn't changed. I took the signed pledge and the divorce papers from Dave and left with Rick. I owe Rick a lot, so I need to thank him properly. Rick, thank you so much for today. If it weren't for you, Dave would have gotten away with everything, and I would have been left crying.
No, I should be thanking you. Because of you, I have a way to get alimony from Emma. I can finally move on from her.
Rick and I feel a great sense of relief. Even though we had cut ties, there was still some unresolved frustration. But now I could let go of the past and look forward to living a positive life. The next day, when Dave returned to work after his 2-week leave, he was greeted by the furious face of the hospital director. Rick's junior coworkers had sent photos of Dave's trip with Emma and recorded audio of their nighttime activities through the hospital's website contact form. It was probably Rick's idea. I really admire Rick's thoroughness. The hospital director saw all the evidence of Dave's lies and decided to fire him, taking a leave for his wife's delivery, but then not even attending and going on a trip with his mistress instead, naturally led to this outcome. I learned this when my former in-laws came to apologize after the divorce was finalized. They told me all about Dave's current situation. And so the alimony that Dave was supposed to pay was covered up front. Of course, he said he would make Dave pay it back later. Dave's inappropriate behavior had become well known among the local medical community. In this small rural area, rumors spread quickly to neighboring towns. So, it was no surprise he couldn't find a new job. In the end, Dave remained jobless and continued to stay with Emma. Meanwhile, Emma was working multiple part-time jobs from morning until late at night to pay the alimony to Rick and me. Since Dave was living off her, he was probably being treated poorly. Sure enough, I received a call from Dave asking for help.
Kate, I was wrong. Please, can't you get me a job at your company? I'll put up with all the tough guys there, no matter how scary they are or how badly they treat me.
Oh, what happened? You were so scared of our company before. According to Dave, Emma was making him do a lot of chores since she was busy with her part-time jobs. Even for simple cleaning tasks, if he left any dust, she made him redo it. Furthermore, if she didn't like the seasoning of the food that Dave cooked, she threw it in the trash.
I never imagined Emma could be so terrifying. Sure, she was strong-willed even as a kid, but sometimes she even chases me with a knife. I don't think I can survive this.
Well, she did protect you from bullies as a kid. Even I'd be scared of such a strong-willed woman. Indeed, there wasn't a single person in our family, even before we went straight, who would do such a dangerous thing. It's surprising that even ordinary women can be so terrifying. But despite feeling a bit of sympathy, helping Dave would mean eventually letting him see our daughter. If possible, I don't want him to meet her now. Maybe one day when she grows up and decides she wants to meet her father on her own. So I hardened my heart and responded coldly. Sorry, Dave, but I can't help you. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. Find a job and make enough money to move out from Emma's place on your own. With that, I hung up the phone without waiting for his reply. Even though he had a medical license, he would have to figure something out eventually. However, a shocking event happened soon after. While watching TV at home, I saw a news report that Dave and Emma had been arrested. Upon hearing more details, it turned out that Dave, desperate for money, found a high-paying part-time job online. Emma jumped at the chance and joined him. But it was a shady job in the underworld. They were recruited through social media to be couriers. They were supposed to deliver phones to designated locations, but the phones contained details of illegal transactions. Even though Dave and Emma claimed they didn't know about it, that wouldn't get them off the hook. Dave knows nothing outside of the medical field and is clueless about the world. Maybe that's why he got involved in such shady business when I told him to find a job on his own. Of course, blaming me doesn't lessen his guilt. In any case, Dave needs to pay for his actions. Right after the divorce, I started working at my family's company again. During a break at work, I told everyone about Dave and Emma's incident and the events leading up to it. Everyone was more shocked by Emma's rough treatment of Dave than by the incident itself.
Even we wouldn't go that far.
She's really scary. No wonder Rick divorced her so quickly.
Rick nodded in agreement as everyone expressed their surprise about Emma.
Well, maybe the real bad guys aren't the ones from our world. Those who act all high and mighty without knowing anything are scarier. Emma is a perfect example of that.
Rick's comment made everyone laugh heartily. Our company truly feels like a family, always cheerful and warm. Since returning to work, I've been working hard with Rick, the executive vice president, to strengthen our company. Some colleagues have suggested that Rick and I should get together, but Rick is just my work partner. I'm enjoying my work now and not thinking about remarrying. My dad named my daughter Lily. Although he still holds the title of president, he has stepped back from day-to-day operations and is devoted to helping raise Lily. The employees fondly call him the grandpa, and he seems happy to be called that. Lily is very attached to her grandpa, so as long as my dad is healthy, I don't have to worry about childcare and can focus on my work. And so, I continue to dedicate myself to work from early in the morning.